To understand human purpose, we have to look past the spiritual definitions. The clearest answer requires an audit of evolutionary biology. In the strictest biological sense, organisms operate as sophisticated vehicles. Their primary mechanical directive is to ensure the propagation of their internal genetic code to the next generation. Traits like bipedalism and massive brain expansion were mechanical advantages. They served as the hardware that allowed our genes to survive a series of generational bottlenecks. But to successfully protect those individual genes, early humans encountered a practical limit. The biological drive toward purely selfish survival reached its peak effectiveness. To bypass this limit, the strategy for replication shifted. The individual's evolutionary success became inextricably linked to the survival of the group, making collective cooperation the new baseline for human success. This pivot changed the definition of purpose. An individual was no longer just a survival machine, but a contributor responsible for the well-being of the wider community. It enabled what anthropologists call the ratchet effect. Each generation learns from the last and adds its own refinements, ensuring that the group's shared knowledge only compounds and moves forward. The development of complex language accelerated this process. Humans gained the ability to teach abstract rules and multi-step instructions, rather than relying on just simple imitation. We see physical evidence of this shift in the invention of tailored clothing. Survival in extreme cold became a technological solution. Preparing hides and using an eyed needle are skills that must be taught, stored outside our DNA, and passed down through culture. At this stage, survival depended more on mastering the group's external software, its rules and technology, than on the individual genetic traits a person inherited at birth. About 12,000 years ago, the Neolithic Revolution introduced a strategy that bypassed the physical constraints of a mobile, hunter-gatherer existence. Humans traded a diverse diet and constant mobility for the predictability of sedentary farming. By domesticating crops like wheat and rice, they generated a consistent, high volume of calories. This storable food surplus supported much denser settlements. For the first time, populations could pack together into permanent villages and eventually the first cities. The social contract adjusted to fit this new reality. Daily purpose was no longer about finding a meal for the day. It was about maintaining the walls, irrigation, and storage systems that kept the surplus safe. Human direction was increasingly defined by the requirements of the human-made system rather than the immediate pressures of the natural environment. The rise of early civilizations in places like Mesopotamia and Egypt was predicated entirely on the successful management of this agricultural surplus. Because a surplus meant not everyone had to farm, a portion of the population could specialize in new roles. This created a workforce of full-time soldiers, merchants, and administrators. This economic shift led to a rigid divide. A massive majority produced the resources, while a small elite class gained control over the storage and distribution of that wealth. Kings, priests, and specialized scribes positioned themselves as the essential managers of this complex system, directing the flow of labor and resources. In these stratified societies, collective purpose was actively engineered. Those at the top used their control over cultural transmission to ensure that the surplus primarily benefited the hierarchy itself. To maintain order, the priestly class developed religious doctrines that framed hard labor and social inequality as cosmically mandated obligations. Rulers used their monopoly over the food supply to buy the loyalty of military enforcers, ensuring that the producers remained compliant with the system's rules. Scribes managed the daily logistics using the specialized technology of literacy. Writing allowed for unchangeable ledgers of taxes, laws, and labor requirements. It functioned as an external hard drive, locking the manufactured purpose of the population into a permanent, enforceable record. For millennia, these religious and administrative frameworks were the primary systems used to organize human direction. But today, the traditional gatekeepers of cultural transmission, the temples and the local rulers, no longer hold a monopoly on the narratives we follow. As the systems that engineered human compliance for thousands of years begin to shift, a new question emerges. If the old structures are fading, what is engineering your purpose today?